Good morning, students. Hello, how are you? I hope you are all are doing very fine. I am Meenal Singer, TGT Science, KV Loktak, Manipur, and this is Digital Science classes. We are studying chapter first of class 10. We already studied the two part of that chapter. Now this part which I'm going to teach you is the part third of that first chapter. Let us look and have a glance what we are going to study today. We are going to study chemical reactions and equation part third. This is our first topic of today, types of chemical reaction. We generally get confused by seeing what type of chemical reaction is this. There are many type of chemical reactions which occur in nature, so we generally get confused. In today's topic, I am going to tell you about how many types of chemical reactions are and what each type has its own characteristic features. Last chapter में हमने पढ़ा था, last session में, that what are balanced and unbalanced chemical reaction and how balanced reaction follows law of conservation of mass. Before studying that, we are going to study about types of chemical reaction. Before studying how to balance a chemical reaction, we have to know how many types of chemical reactions are. So start by first topic, that there are more than 6 common type of chemical reactions and 2 special categories are there. Means 6 are common and 2 are uncommon. Based on the classification, the basis of classification is entirely different from those of 2. That means total 8 type of reaction we are going to study. Let's take a glance at this table. In this table, what we have written here, you are seeing this, that there are 6 common type of chemical reaction. This is a table. This is a brief table in which you are going to see how many types of chemical reaction is there, and after that we will study about each chemical reaction in detail. This is type of chemical reaction. This is the explanation of that type of chemical reaction, and this is the general reaction that occur. First is combination reaction. As you can see the word combination. Combination means when we combine the things together. In this reaction we combine the two reactant. आप सबको पता है reactant क्या होते हैं? Reactant are those chemical substances, elements or compounds that react and gives a suitable product by the chemical change is known as reactant. So in this combination reaction, 2 or more compounds combine to form one compound. That means only one single compound is formed. Sometime 2 or more elements, or sometime one element or one compound can be react together to form other compound. This is a general reaction, that when there is a chemical reactant named as A and other chemical reactant B, it combine together and form the product AB, in which both A and B join together by some type of bonds. This is known as combination reaction. Second one is very common reaction, decomposition reaction. It is opposite to that of combination reaction. The opposite of a combination reaction, a complex molecule, that is here AB is formed, and in this AB again separates from each other A plus B. A complex molecule breaks down to make a simpler one. So in combination reaction what occur? A single product is formed, and in decomposition reaction what occur? 2 different element or compound again form by a complex compound. These are opposite to one another. Let's take a look in some other reaction. Now this is another table. This is the part of that table जिसमें जो part हमने पढ़ा था combination और decomposition. These are 2 types. Now the third type is precipitation reaction. Now what is precipitation reaction? Precipitation reaction is formed when precipitate is there. जब precipitate वहाँ पे बनता है. What you know? What is precipitate? Precipitate क्या होता है? Two solutions of a soluble salt are mixed resulting in a insoluble solid. जब भी हम दो soluble substance को मिलाते हैं और अगर कोई insoluble substance उसमें से extract हो जाता है तब उस insoluble substance को हम कहते हैं precipitate. जैसे A में अगर हमने कोई salt मिलाया B, तो अगर हमारे पास जो precipitate बना और soluble salt हमें C obtain हुआ. Precipitate मतलब muddy like substance which appears on the bottom of that flask or conical tube or conical flask or test tube is known as precipitate. In this precipitation reaction, mainly precipitate is formed. For example, if you add some drop of lemon juice in a jar of milk, you can obtain the precipitate of milk, and that precipitate of milk is generally known as curd. ठीक है. So that curd settle on the bottom and the in the form of insoluble substance, and the water which is present in that milk comes upon the above of that precipitate. So precipitate is what? When the two solution of soluble are mixed resulting in an insoluble solid. That means precipitate is an insoluble solid. When two soluble salt, that means which are completely soluble in each other, we can't see another type of salt in that, and when we mix these two soluble salt, it gives us a precipitate, then it is known as precipitation reaction. This is a general equation of precipitation reaction. Now the next one is neutralization reaction. Neutralization means when we neutral something. Neutral means neither that is acid nor that is base. An acid and a base react with each other. Generally the product in this reaction is salt and water. Generally neutralization reaction occur when acid and bases react together. Always when acid and base react together, it forms a salt and a water. Water is necessary in this neutralization reaction. When we combine an acid and a base together, we always obtain a salt and water as a byproduct. We obtain a salt in large amount and water in less amount. So acid and base together form a salt which is neither acid or neither base. That this is known as neutralization reaction. Second one, another one is combustion reaction. Combustion reaction means oxygen combined with this. In combustion reaction, presence of oxygen is very necessary, because as you all know that oxygen helps in burning. That is why in combustion reaction oxygen is very necessary. Oxygen combined with a compound to form carbon dioxide and water. These reactions are exothermic in nature, means they give off large amount of heat. So in combustion reaction oxygen is necessary. This oxygen when react with any chemical substance, it forms water and carbon dioxide. As when we burn anything, we obtain a black color smoke. That black color smoke is of carbon dioxide, and a small amount of water is also generated, but due to high temperature it changes into steam. That is why we can't see H2O more oftenly. Okay, so in combustion reaction what presence of oxygen is very necessary. Now coming upon on the next reaction, let us see the next reaction, that is displacement reaction. Displacement means when we shift some other chemical towards other chemical, then it is known as displacement reaction. One element takes place with another element in the compound. That means this B and C. Let us see. In this general equation, here the compound is B and C, and here the element is A. That means A is an element and B and C is a compound. Now because A is more reactive than B, that is why A replaces B and form AC. Got it? AC, because it displaces the position of B and takes place with the C, then this is known as displacement reaction. That means one element displaces the other element and form an entirely new compound, then this type of reaction is known as displacement reaction. Now the other is double displacement reaction. It is the exchange of ion. In this, A is more reactive than B, that is why it displaces and B remains alone. But in this double displacement, the element itself exchanges the ions together. That means A displaces D as well as D displaces A. Then this is known as double displacement reaction. In this, both the opponent, that is A and D, are comparatively comparatively powerful than each other. Oxidation and reduction reaction is what? One reactant get oxidized, that means one reactant can combine with the oxygen which is present in either of the element, and the other get reduced, are known as oxidation reduction. In this, copper oxide is here and hydrogen is there, one is get reduced and other is known as oxidized. Oxidation and reduction reaction is also known as redox reaction when we take them easily. Okay, this chart of combination reaction, here say A and B combine together to form a single product AB. Decomposition reaction, the bond is formed between Na and Cl and we obtain Na and Cl together. In this combustion reaction, it is CH which react with oxygen. Oxygen is very necessary for combustion, for the burning of anything. That is why carbon dioxide and H2O is formed. Neutralization reaction, HCl is an acid and NaOH is a strong base. When acid and base react together, it forms salt solution. NaCl is a general salt and water is formed. Now the displacement reaction is what? Na replaced Ag. Coming upon on our next slide, on the basis of heat absorbed or released by the chemical reaction, chemical reactions are of two types. Number one is known as exothermic and other one is known as endothermic chemical reaction. We can explain this by following example. In exothermic reaction, heat is released out. Got it? In exothermic reaction, what happened? Heat is released out. You can see the arrow that are coming outside. That means it is a solution. It is hotter than the surrounding. That means heat is passes to the surrounding. That is why it is known as exo. Exo means out and thermic means temperature. When the heat releases from that solution, it is known as exothermic solution. Our chemical reaction, in endothermic reaction, the product is cooler than that of surrounding. That is why it absorbs heat to make bonds. It is known as endothermic chemical reaction. Endo means to take heat. Thermic means heat. Endothermic means they can take heat from the environment, and exothermic means they release the heat in the environment. We will study this later in detail, that how this heat released and how this heat evolved from that or absorbed from the chemical reaction. Coming upon on the next topic, let's study in detail about combination reaction. As I told you earlier, that combination reaction is what? When the two element or one element or one compound or two compounds react together and form bond and form a single product, then it is known as combination reaction. Let us study about the definition. That reaction in which single product is formed. The key word is here single product. You can easily recognize combination reaction when only single product is formed from more than two reactant are known as combination reaction. Here two or more two reactants are necessary. That means when there are two elements, one element or one compound or two compounds are there, only then a single product is formed, then the reaction is known as combination reaction. Let us consider example. This is a circle. Let us consider this is one element and this is other element. When it reacts together, it forms what? It forms this type of compound. Only single product is formed. In this circle and this square forms a bond with each other and forms a single product. Two different elements are present and forms a single product, then this is known as combination reaction. Let us see some examples of combination. See, this is simple. When two elements These are two elements. Sodium is in solid form and chlorine is in gaseous form. As I told you earlier, you can make the reaction more appropriate by writing the symbols of that state of that element. These are two sodium and these are two chlorine molecules. Sodium is in solid form and chlorine is in gaseous form. When they react together, bond is formed between them, and you can see NaCl is formed in the presence in the form of gas. When we trap this gas in some conical flask, or in some conical flask or some tubular type things, we can solidify the NaCl and get the solid NaCl. That means sodium and chlorine. These are the example when two elements react together and forms a compound. Then this is also a combination reaction. Let us see another example here. As for sulfur and oxygen is gas. It react together and it forms sulfur dioxide, which is also a gas. In this, again two elements combine together to form a product, single product, which is in gaseous form. Let us consider third example. This is calcium oxide, that is lime. Water, when it reacts with carbon dioxide, which is in gaseous form, it forms calcium carbonate, which is in solid form. In all the three type of chemical reaction, the example of chemical reaction, you can see only single type of product is formed. That means the keyword for this is general structure of sulfur dioxide. That means sulfur combines with oxygen molecule with the help of two bonds. That is why a single substance is formed. This is known as sulfur dioxide. Word is what? The keyword in the combination reaction is that only single product is formed by making different type of bonds. This is not point. Combination reaction involve the formation of new bonds, and this process release a large amount of energy in the form of heat. That is why these type of combination reactions are generally exothermic in nature, because new bond is formed and releases the heat. As soon as the new bond is formed, it releases the heat. Due to balance itself, due to make itself stable, they generally releases the heat. That is why combination reactions are generally exothermic in nature. Combustion of coal and combustion of hydrogens are the example of combination reaction. That means when we burn coal and when we burn hydrogen in the presence of oxygen, this is also an example of combination reaction. Let us think. Coal burns in the air. As I told you earlier, carbon dioxide is formed. हमने पहले example में भी दिखाया था. Carbon is in solid form. That means a coal. You generally, when burn the coal, it forms a black color smoke like particles. That is carbon dioxide. It is a simple example of combustion as well as a combination reaction. When you burn coal in oxygen, a large amount of heat is produced. That is why this reaction is also exothermic in nature. That heat is used to cook food. That heat it used to keep ourselves warm when we are in winter. When we feel winter, hydrogen burns in the presence of oxygen to form water. That means hydrogen is also oxidized to form water. Steam, upon cooling, it becomes. This is the example that I told you, that when hydrogen react with the oxygen, it forms water. Hydrogen is present in gaseous form, oxygen is present in gaseous form, and water that is formed is in liquid form. This is another example of combustion reaction in which only a single product is formed. In this large amount of heat is also produced. That is why this H2O, which is produced during this reaction, is in steam form. When we cool that steam, we get the liquid. Manufacture of ammonia. This is very important example you generally get into your exam. The manufacture of ammonia gas from nitrogen and oxygen. And hydrogen is also a combination reaction. That is, nitrogen when react with hydrogen gas, it form ammonia. Ammonia is a gas having a pungent smell. You can easily recognize the smell of ammonia. So when you make hydrogen, when you react nitrogen which is in gaseous form with the 3 molecules of hydrogen, you get ammonia. In this reaction also large amount of heat is produced. That is why it is an exothermic reaction as well as it is the reduction reaction as well as. So Above all these example, you can generally explain what is the keyword in this reaction. The keyword is formation of a single product. You can easily recognize when only a single product is formed in the chemical reaction, then this is a type of a what? It is a type of a combination reaction. Next activity. This activity is in your NCERT book. A combination reaction. Before starting this activity, let us consider this point. Combination reaction is also known as additional reaction because we add two type of reactant together to get a single product. This reaction is also known as synthesis reaction because generally anything is formed during this chemical reaction as a byproduct of this chemical reaction. That is why it is also known as synthesis reaction. Now this activity is present in your NCERT books, activity 1.4. In this activity you can see there is a beaker. In this beaker water is present and calcium oxide, that is lime, is present. And when you put calcium oxide in water in the beaker, and after some time when you touch that beaker, you can feel that the surface of beaker became hot. Why it is become hot? Because calcium oxide when react with water, it evolves the large amount of heat. That is why this reaction is also exothermic in nature. Let us see this activity. If we add a small amount of calcium oxide in water filled with beaker, it vigorously react with the water and produce slaked lime. That slaked lime, which is known as calcium hydroxide, and produce large amount of heat. It can be felt by touching the glass beaker. So this activity is an example of exothermic as well as combustion reaction, or we can say that if we have to prove that combustion reaction always releases heat, this activity is the experimental proof of that reason. The activity, when calcium oxide react with water, it forms a calcium hydroxide solution. This calcium hydroxide is also known as slaked lime. A solution of slaked lime, that is this solution which is formed by addition of calcium oxide and water together, is used for whitewashing. When we generally do whitewashing of our house, the walls, this calcium hydroxide is used for whitewashing. What happened when this calcium hydroxide, we leave that calcium hydroxide for 2 or 3 days, it reacts with the carbon dioxide which is present in the atmosphere and formed calcium carbonate. This calcium carbonate has a shiny appearance. That is why our wall shines. And water is formed which evaporates slowly the carbon dioxide present in the air after 3-4 days and forms calcium carbonate, which gives a shiny finish to the wall. As I told you earlier, when we react calcium oxide with water, it forms calcium hydroxide. This calcium hydroxide water, that is slaked lime, is used for whitewashing our walls. And this, by the whitewashing, why we use this slaked lime? Because it reacts with the carbon dioxide present in the atmosphere and produces calcium carbonate and a small amount of water that which evaporates. This calcium carbonate has a shiny appearance and gives our wall a shiny touch. That is why calcium hydroxide is oftenly used. This is also an example of what? This is also an example of combination reaction in the above equation. Large amount of heat is evolved. That is why we generally take normal water when we add quick lime into that water to obtain a slaked lime, because large amount of heat is always produced. So you have to touch this calcium hydroxide with great precaution.